Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kendra Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have an anonymous male left behind and forward-moving spouse with a bomb drop of November 29th, 2024 and a date of marriage of 2020. He is a vanisher who is a low-energy wallower, and this is a follow-up from last week. So he says that he has some clarification on the vanishing spouse that he described from the bomb drop of November 29th, which was right before or just at Thanksgiving of last year. And it was out of the blue. He says, my relationship was one of a blended family. My now ex-wife had 3 girls from a previous marriage. The divorce was final on November 11th of this year. That is a few days ago. As of right now, that was this week. Okay, so this is still not simply that it was a shock, but the divorce happened within a year. Okay, bomb drop was a year ago, and divorce 1 year later. The youngest daughter is now 24, and she's a single mother, and she has a son, and that is the grandson to whom I referred in the previous submission. One of the things I asked in that previous video was if he was able to maintain a relationship with that grandchild, because he'd referenced that, and so that was really important. So he says that I do now, I deal only with her for visits now. So I'm really glad to hear that, because when you have stepchildren, and especially stepchildren that haven't, I think you said you'd been together for 14 years, but married for 5. So 14 years. But when you have a relationship that has not, that is from a blended family, and so your stepdaughter would have been 10 when you got together with her mother then. And so she's known you for that long. And she was a young child, but not super young, but preteen. So she's known you for that long. But even then, it can sometimes be harder to maintain the relationship with a step-parent. Fortunately, you weren't quite she wasn't a teenager. But especially with midlife, that one parent will try to, you shouldn't have a relationship with that, and they'll try to weigh it and alienate it a bit. Especially they will alienate more than they do with a bio-parent. We get a lot of bio-parent alienation, but even more when it's a step. And so I'm really glad that you've been able to maintain, not only having been able to maintain visitation going through her, and that she's accepted that, and that you're able to maintain a relationship with your grandson. Hold on to that and treasure that, okay? The last few days, he goes on, the last few days of the divorce were a complete whirlwind. Remember, she has been a vanisher. This MLCer, he left the house and returned, I believe, at the holidays to open gifts, and that was pretty much it. So I gathered my things from the house on Sunday, or it says on a Sunday. I think I was assuming it was just this past Sunday, but it may have been the Sunday before. My ex was still guarded. Little words. This was only the 3rd time I have seen her in a year. And remember, this bomb drop was sudden. I believe you said that in the morning she said something and you said, can we talk about this later when I get home? It was that sudden. You were leaving in the morning for work. And that was pretty much it. I did receive a settlement check that day. On Monday, she called me to ask if I could go help her with a car purchase. I sell vehicles for a living. So that made sense. At first, you read that piece, can I help with a car purchase? And you're like, really? But then you're thinking, okay, I sell cars. That made sense. It wasn't like, hey, can you come over and help me? Because we know how car salesmen, or when you go places, sometimes they're different with women than with men. But no, that made sense. It didn't seem so much as taking advantage because you sell it. Okay. I agreed to help. That's good. Tuesday we got divorced. Now, for those watching this, you could be watching it way in the future, but I am setting this to go out on a Monday. The Tuesday just referenced was the Tuesday right before this. So 6, 7 days before, just under 1 week before. Okay? The divorce was less than a week ago. Finalized. Okay. That's how fresh this is. Wednesday, she showed up to purchase the vehicle. I was polite and graceful in the transaction, and she was businesslike. I could see shame and guilt, and it's sad. I'm in church, I work out, I do counseling, and I'm trying hard to move forward. I feel like deep down she still knows she can trust me, and this was said with a question mark. So I feel like deep down she still knows she can trust me? Yeah. I'm going to say she can trust you because she trusted you to go to buy a car from you. And really, she wouldn't if she didn't trust you. So let's look at it. If the situation were flipped and you were the MLCer and you were one of those horrible betraying ones. We have MLCers who are, as yours is, low energy wallower. But think of if you were the MLCer, but you were a high energy replayer who was fully betraying and taunting it in a very narcissistic way and poking and being cruel. I wouldn't want to go buy a car from you, even if you were a car salesman. Sometimes that MLCer will take advantage of the ex just for the cruelty, because the cruelty is the point. And I wouldn't trust them, even if you trusted that MLCer with other people. And I might not trust that MLCer during their MLC with other people in that context. But I especially wouldn't trust them with me, because the cruelty is the point specifically with me. In other words, with their left behind spouse. But she's not like that. No, she trusts you, and you're not the MLCer either. But you haven't done anything to show that you don't trust her. And she has stayed away in the sense she's been a vanisher. And she might have all of these feelings, but it sounds like she's stayed quiet about them. So she knows she can trust you, at least in certain things. And that's not to say you're not trustworthy in all of the other areas. But think about how trust works. There's trust in emotional relationships. And you might have an MLCer who you don't trust with emotional relationships, but they're a highly skilled surgeon. And I don't trust you to be a really good husband, but I trust you to be a really great heart surgeon because you're skilled at that. So you might trust their skill and that their ethics in that and the integrity they take to their work are high. Plus, narcissism goes with highly skilled surgeons often, but they want to be highly skilled in that. So she's going to trust you at your work. Okay. I'm not saying you're a narcissist at work. Now, the next thing you said is any hope. So that's the other reason I named this, that focusing on expectations. Okay. And I have an article on hope. I think it's kind of a long one. I wrote it about 10, 15 years ago. I love hope. Okay. And I want to tell people, yes, there is always hope, unless she's dead, of course, or unless you're saying, am I going to be queen? Things that are not within possibility. Or am I going to win the Olympics for swimming, or something that's just not within the realm? Okay. But there's hope and there's expectation. And what I mean by that is there's possibility and there's probability. Hope is the possibility. But what is the probability? What is the statistical likelihood And for all of us, for all of the MLCers out there listening, my goal in doing this is to increase the statistical likelihood. But it's not up there, okay? It's not above 50%. And for different groups, it is higher for different types of MLCers. But it's not there, okay? I want you to know that. So I want you to go into this eyes wide open. And when you live your life, I want you to live your life to the fullest and do your healing. Because we have left behind spouses, standers who are saying, well, my healing will be when my MLC or when my spouse comes home. That's not how it works. And I know you know that because most of the people out there know that. But I'm going to say it anyway. If your spouse comes home because and if and you haven't healed, then they're coming home with a gun to their head. They're coming home out of duty. And that is not a healed marriage. That is not a healthy marriage, and that's toxic. And that is a recipe for disaster. And that is the kind of situation that is doomed to repetition. That is like pulling an MLCer out of the tunnel or letting them come home still in the tunnel, or yanking them out of the tunnel, often out of the front of the tunnel. And what I say then is they will go back in for a much worse crisis later. Not that you're saying anything like that. What I'm saying is there's always hope, but I don't ever want anyone to bank on it. It's not something that you go out and you bet on. The expectation is expect anything, everything, and nothing. Yeah, there's an irony, isn't it? How do you do that? It's you go out there and you live your life and you heal. And you know what? She's a vanisher, but you do have a ringer. You've got her daughter. And her daughter doesn't really have to go out and be a messenger. It's not that. But there's a grapevine. And that doesn't mean that's even her daughter's job. But there's going to be just even the smallest flow of information. Oh, you see him. Oh, I wasn't aware you saw him. Keep seeing. You were still seeing him. And then she might be annoyed. But, and then she's, yeah, he's doing really well. Yeah, he just got a raise. Just got just got, Sailor of the Year, whatever. He's looking really good. All of these things might come through. The way you are reflecting, the way you are being a mirror. And you never know. Curiosity may or may not be piqued. Especially with a vanisher. We can't tell. And women tend to be more decisive. That is the bad news for male standards. Women tend to be more decisive. They make their decision, and oftentimes they make their decision way ahead, sometimes years ahead. So many times a woman will make the decision years ahead, and then it'll be for a certain when something happens. So I'm waiting for the kids to be grown up, or I'm waiting for their retirement, or I'm waiting for certain milestones. And they may know what that is, but they don't speak it. And not that that's your situation. You weren't married as long. But that could be years. The kids could be 10. And I'm waiting for the kids to grow up and be graduated from high school or graduated from college. And in that time, there's a flow that could reverse and things could get better. Yes. But the thing is, the husband doesn't know. In fact, what often happens is the husband thinks things have gotten better because the husband, from his position, in his perception or point of view, she stops complaining. She stops criticizing. Why? Because she's given up. When the wife stops complaining, criticizing, making suggestions of, I wish, or making suggestions of, can we improve this? Can we go to counseling? Whatever. It's not because she's just like, okay, I guess this is just how it's going to be, and she's accepted it and accepted the status quo. It's because she has given up. She's made up her mind, and she's set a date. It's just somewhere in the future, because she knows this in her mind. It's hopeless, and I'm just going to wait it out. And then when I get to when that waiting period is over, and when that date hits, then that it's not a bomb drop in her head, because she knows it's coming. So that's what I mean when I say women are more decisive, because they've known about it. And I don't know if that's her. I don't know what date there was. Okay. But just that idea, women are more decisive. She did it suddenly. So what we don't know is if it was as sudden for her. Okay. And if you have any other insights, think about the traumas she had. What was her first marriage like? How did her first marriage end? What did she process and go through to recover from that first marriage? What sort of insights did she have from it? And the next thing is, what hadn't she told you about what she was pleased with and what she was displeased with in the relationship she had with you? In other words, what are you missing that you might not know that she didn't want, or that she wanted changed? Or looking back, was there a point where she was saying all these things? And it doesn't mean always complaining, but, I wish we could do things like this. I wish this, I wish this. And then it just stopped. And then you can go, oh. If you ever get to that point, okay, look for those little tiny clues of those things. Okay. That's where your insight comes in. Where could you have been different, and where can you be different now? Where is your growth? It's not your fault what she has done. And she needs to go through her journey. Okay? There is hope. But you have to let her do her thing. Which sometimes can be a beautiful thing, but sometimes it really sucks too. Because you don't have that. You have to give yourself closure without getting answers from her, huh? And it's not because she's gone permanently. It's because she has refused to give you them. And oftentimes when a person refuses to give you them, it's not because they're being a bitch or a jerk. It's because they really don't know. Or they don't know, or they don't have a way to verbalize it and explain it. Or they don't want to hurt you. And maybe what they say is just in their mind. It's not really real. It would hurt you, but you'd think about it going, oh, really? Well, and you might realize that was just all a projection from them if they were to tell you it. Anyway, and it would help you go, oh, she's really immature. That was what she was doing it for that reason? And she's withholding it because she thought that would hurt me. And if I were in the same frame of mind, I would be just as immature. Because MLCers regress. Okay, that's a lot to throw at you. So if you haven't, go through the class. Go through Understanding Midlife Crisis. The links are in the descriptions below. Okay. And that can help you understand some of the things that may be going on. You talked about that you didn't believe there wasn't someone else, but you didn't expand on that. So, is there? There may be not. As a low energy wallower, low energy wallowers are less likely than high energy replayers. Still likely to have an alienator, but less likely than the others that. Okay, so maybe not. Your job, your biggest job, healing. Okay, healing yourself. There's hope, but don't have those expectations. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. I hope it wasn't too confusing because I tend to ramble. And I will see